Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm happy to see such a large and enthusiastic crowd. I'm Jeff Mankoff with the Russia and Eurasia program here at CSIS, and I have the privilege to be moderating our discussion this morning with Rim Gilfanov, who is the director of Radio Free Europe's Tatar-Bashkir Service, a position that he's been in now for more than 10 years and has been with RFE for, I think we figured out, close to 25 years. He is a native of Kazan and covers issues in the Volga region and among the Tatar community more broadly. We're going to be talking today about the situation of the Tatars and ethnic minorities more generally in Russia since the annexation of Crimea, a period that's seen increased efforts at Russification and crackdowns on independent ethnic and national organizations. I think particularly we're going to be focusing on the Tatars, but we'll have a discussion that ranges more broadly than that as well. And I hope it'll be an interactive discussion. We'll have lots of opportunities for you to ask questions of Rim as well. So without any further ado, turn the floor over to Rim Gilfanov.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning. I would start that every time I go outside and meet new people, and they usually ask me where I come from, I usually say Tatarstan, and practically all of them are full of joy, very excited, and saying, "Oh, Kazakhstan, very nice." And after I start insisting on my Tatar origin and explaining where Tatarstan is, it's like republic in Russia, not in Central Asia, not in Caucasus, not in the Middle East, but in Middle Volga, still in Europe. And second excitement comes because many of them think only Russians live in Russia. So today I'm sure we have a little bit different audience here. And to make the story even shorter for US audience, I would say that Tatarstan, it's like Texas, with strong regional identity and where the oil is. The only remarkable difference might be that Tatarstan has much stricter gun control.
And no barbecue.
Exactly a year ago, October 31st, Russian President Vladimir Putin gave an order to start working on a special federal law called On a Russian Nation. The idea came from former Nationalities Minister Vyacheslav Mikhailov at the meeting of Presidential Council for Inter-Ethnic Relations. And the idea was immediately picked up and approved by Putin. So the idea to start cooking a new nation, they call it new civic political nation, was floating among Russian elite long time ago. Putin himself promoting the idea, you probably know, aware of that, of so-called common cultural code shared by all the ethnic groups in Russia, despite their different linguistic, historical, cultural differences. The term also spiritual unity is widely used, sometimes to describe and promote this new Russian nation. And now, exactly a year passed, we can see how the cooking is going to be. Process is just being unleashed all over ethnic areas in Russia against minority languages, with the most spectacular things happening in Tatarstan, till now the strongest ethnic stronghold, I would say, which was at the same time very stable ethnic republic in Russia. In July 20th, Putin made another statement which might be considered as a major step in implementing this concept of the wider political civic nation, when he said that it was impermissible to force someone to learn a language that is not person's native language, as well as to reduce the hours of Russian language in Russia's ethnic republics. this caused a big controversy in Tatarstan particularly because the Tatar in this republic is taught as one of two state languages. It's not like simple, it's not considered like simple mother tongue. It's by constitution of Tatarstan, it's Tatar and Russian are declared as a state languages, regional state languages. And with his recent statement, Putin openly indicated that he doesn't recognize these regional regulations, regional constitution, and only central government regulation counts. Immediately, Russian federal prosecutors started to implement Putin's warning, going from school, verbatim, going from school to school, and issuing their own warnings to cancel Tatar tutorials or face criminal consequences for violating federal laws. And this controversy is becoming a real political crisis now in the region, destabilizing Tatarstan and dividing the society with ethnic borders, as it happened in many post-Soviet countries immediately after the breakup of Soviet Union, or I can even show the case of several Balkan countries. And these measures are smartly accompanied by the, I would say, guided activities of local pro-Moscow Russian activists who mobilize Russian parents to attack, as they call, needless junk Tatar language, and in fact spreading Russian superiority ideas and ideology of so-called Greater Russian world. And right before this harshest ever attack on Tatar language, we witnessed another showdown between Tatarstan and federal government. Historically, as Tatarstan claimed its sovereignty in 90s, they insisted on having separate treaty with federal government on sharing powers. It was first signed in 1994 and then re-signed 2007. And this treaty expired in August this year. Again, Tatarstan insisted on having another new treaty. Moscow has been hesitating to prolong it till now, despite Tatar lawmakers call for it to do so. Thus, building of Russian nation turns out to be another even more sophisticated and radical reincarnation of famous Russification for Russia's ethnic minorities, which they already suffered from Tsarist and then Soviet regimes previously. And the situation with the smaller, even smaller ethnic groups like Altais, Chuvars, Maris, Udmurts, even more tragic and dangerous, because in their case they are so weak, there is almost no opposition against these attempts by federal government to implement new Russification, and they have no independent media, independent institutions to confront and make those troubling policies more public. And now a question comes, why West should be interested in all this mess, some might ask, and including you, to get answers and to have fruitful discussion. I will just through a few bullet points to open it now, and I think the Q&A session would be more useful. If you have any questions, I will gladly answer the questions. Just the topics, why Tatarstan matter. Russia can be democratic only as truly federative state with certain degree of their ethnic entities' own autonomy, or in case of Tatarstan, potentially independence. Importance of identity preservation as a wider base for political culture, tolerance, diversity, and pluralism. And given that Tatarstan, very specific region in Russian Federation, Tatars generally the second biggest minority in Russia behind Russians. At the same time, Tatars have their own language, Tatar language, which is completely different. It's of Turkic, Altaic family, language family. The majority of Tatars are Sunni Muslims, different culture, mostly oriented to Orient. So if at the same time Tatarstan in economical terms, very well developed region in Russian Federation, one of the most advanced regions who really attract foreign investment, and have had so far very stable government and stable political situation. And if dealt properly, Tatarstan actually, as an advanced economy with rich history, might be a showcase for even for wider Muslim world. So this is my bullet points. I mean, if we will be focusing on this, I would just pass to the audience the initiative and answer questions.
Great. Well, thanks for the introduction to a region of Russia that I think you're right doesn't get very much attention in the West, but is important both in and of itself, but also for what it tells us about how the Russian government's approach to dealing with its own population across the country is going to go. One of the things we were talking about before the session started are the different groups of Tatars in different parts, not only of Russia, but the former Soviet Union as well. And I was wondering if you could say something maybe for the audience about the relationship between the Volga Tatars, Tatarstan, and the Crimean Tatars, who have gotten some attention in the West since the annexation of Crimea, and how both, what the connections are at the sort of people-to-people level, but also if there are commonalities in terms of the Russian government's approach to dealing with the Tatar populations in these two very different environments.
Yeah, Tatars are a nation with a big and rich history. So probably you all know the Golden Horde history, which was the big, very spread empire on Eurasian space. And after it was so broke down, different Tatar Khanates appear. One of them Kazan Khanate, and the second famous in Crimean Khanate. But given that geographically they are divided and they are spread from each other, and with Russian expansion going in between these territories, the development of those different ethnic, different Tatar groups went differently. So in terms of language, culture, and in international relations, the Crimean Khanate went its different way, and Kazan Khanate was eventually conquered by Russians in 16th century. Crimean Khanate had pretty much tight relations with the Ottoman Empire, so it was even that even influenced their language. So Crimean Tatars have no problem communicating with Turks, for example, because the language already very close to Turkish now. In our case, the Kazan Tatar language developed in close societies, and we carry the same name, Tatars, but the majority of Tatars in Russian Federation are Kazan Tatars. They are living in Volga and Ural region, between Moscow and Ural mountains. And Crimean Tatars, had very tragic history. First, they suffered, when Kazan Tatars also suffered genocide after Russians occupied the territory. There were several waves of forceful conversion to Orthodoxy. We even have small group of baptized Tatars. At the same time, we have no problem inside the community as far as religion concerned. And the Tatars can really be proud that Orthodox Tatars and Muslim Tatars live in peace, and they never had any kind of, not even big, but any kind of conflict based on religion. And in Crimean Tatars, this survived first Tsarist expulsions to Turkey, and then the most tragic thing came in 1944, as the whole nation was deported from Crimea to Central Asia, and according to some data, almost half a nation just died during the deportation, and then in the first years of settlement in Central Asia, in Siberia. So now, officially, Crimean Tatars considered as a different, separate ethnic group. It's reflected in all census already. In the last Soviet census also included Crimean Tatars as a separate group. Politically, this is also interesting phenomena because Crimean Tatars very actively in political terms, and they are, I would say that they are natural allies of international community in terms of keeping the world order. They, in many of them, majority still considers Crimea as a part of Ukraine, because despite of the fact that Crimea was under Ukraine, under independent Ukraine, I would say, only several years, not a big period of time actually, but nevertheless, it was the most successful years in developing ethnic identity, in their ethnic revival. That's why they consider Ukraine as their home state. And in this, I would say that this group is the most politically active, most united, and most trustworthy.
Okay, let's open it up to the audience. Do we have microphones? Okay, please wait for a microphone to come around. Identify yourself, and please do ask a question. So end your statement with a question.
Thank you. Yes, hello. My name is Walter Ruby. I represent the Greater Washington Muslim Jewish Forum, and worked in Muslim-Jewish relations internationally, and had some work with the Crimean Tatars actually during the Ukrainian period, working with the Jewish community in Simferopol and the Crimean Tatars, and unfortunately after the Russian invasion that became impossible because some of the Jewish groups which had been involved then became very pro-Russian and so forth. But my question was really about following up exactly the points you were making in terms. I'm curious about the cooperation today and what the Tatarstan government and Tatarstan civil society is doing, perhaps to help the Crimean Tatars at this point in their very desperate, I should say, from what I understand, situation. So that really, what kind of exchanges are going on?
And as all things started with annexation, Putin, as a proper intelligence officer, his regime, he considered all the possible ways to influence whoever in Crimea to get on the Russian side. So the Crimean Tatars were of major concern because they are historically anti-Soviet, because they know what Soviet Union brought to them, they know what Russia brought to them during the Tsarist regimes. So they are clearly pro-Ukrainian, and anti-Russian. So Putin's task was to do something with it, and he tried to use Kazan Tatars. Many Tatar intellectuals remember it very with the shame, but a lot of delegations started to come from Kazan to Simferopol, and they tried to pursue Crimean Tatars to accept the annexation, saying Putin will give you money to develop your schools, culture. Crimean Tatar was formally announced as a state language, though in reality it's nothing. I mean, the Crimean Tatar is basically not used officially. And but all these attempts failed, and just few of Crimean Tatar activists actually started to collaborate with occupational regime, but in vast majority, Crimean Tatars, as I said, they are still pretty much very pro-Ukrainian. But it was, I mean, Moscow tried to use Kazan Tatars, and they later saw that it gives no results, so they stopped it. So now practically no contacts between Kazan and Crimean Tatars, because it all depends on Moscow's policy.
So they stopped.
If needed, they want to use it, but if they say it has no results, so they just stop it.
But at the civil society level, there's not much interaction now?
On the level of Tatar activists, like pro-independence, pro-autonomy activists, they all understand what the situation is. There is a contacts between Milli Mejlis and Tatar national activists, Tatar political, non-governmental activists, I would say. Nothing has changed for them, but on official level, it was pretty much conducted or controlled by Moscow.
Okay. Is there, in the back?
Thank you. Good morning. Alex Sanchez, I'm a defense analyst. One quick question. I know that, well, next year Russia is going to host the FIFA World Cup, and Kazan is going to be one of the host cities. I'm wondering how is the city and Tatars are preparing for this, a great event. I know that the so-called Islamic State has promised that they're going to carry out terrorist attacks across Russia if they host the World Cup. Are there any security measures being taken in Kazan to protect the population, and the tourists that are going to go over there? And given that you mentioned that Tatarstan has a significant Muslim population, most of them secular, is there any particular concern from Moscow that something could happen over there? Thank you.
You probably heard stories about the corruption in Russia, but especially in building and constructing all the sport, stadiums, sport centers. In almost everywhere where the World Cup matches are scheduled, they have some problems. In Petersburg, in Samara, in Saransk, they just, in some places, they cannot probably make it till the World Cup opens. But there is only case they don't have any problems, and this is in Kazan. Kazan in 2013 had hosted World Universiade Games, and the city was pretty much good prepared for this. So the stadium is over there already, so it's functioning, and many other centers were built specially to this event, and the infrastructure was prepared. A metro line was built, again, only an international airport was reconstructed. So in terms of accepting World Cup events, Kazan is fully prepared. In terms of political situation and security situation, I don't see any problem in this, because till now, as I said, Tatarstan was case of real tolerance, as long as, in terms of coexisting of different religious groups. The two major communities, they are Muslim and Orthodox Christians. Historically, no problems till now. And we have also a big Jewish community too, with the synagogue. And security, no major terror event was registered so far. And in terms of security, well, as a journalist, as a media who covers the region, I'm following the development for 25 years now. Until now, I didn't see any really major, no any kind of attack on foreigners, not at all. So far it's very stable. But again, as I said, as Putin started with this language issue, and this divided so far more or less consolidated population into Tatar and Russian communities. This starts me worrying a little bit. But again, it's not like religious instability. It's not instability in terms of xenophobia or hatred to foreigners. No problem at all with this.
And what is the demographic balance in Tatarstan between Tatars and Russians?
Tatars slightly more. It's like up to 53% of the population Tatar, and 39 Russian, and a lot of other different ethnic groups like Chuvashs, Udmurts, Maris, the ethnic groups who are living around the Tatarstan.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Nart Shekham, and I am Cherkess, which, as I understand, is a Tatar word, because in our language there is no such word. And apparently the Golden Horde, when they came upon the North Caucasus, they didn't know what to call us, they picked that word. So you probably know the meaning of that word more than I do. My question is about the Nogai Tatars, or as we call them, Nagway, who also inhabit the North Caucasus. And I also was told by a Cossack that I met here in Washington that at some point there were regiments of Cossacks comprised totally of Tatars. Is that true?
I have no idea about the Cherkess name, by the way. As a historian, I can only say that Caucasus is populated with such a big diversity of ethnic groups. So probably the newcomers from steppe at that time just decided to call all of them in one language. So it went into the history like Cherkess. As for Nogais, it's another biggest chunk of the former Golden Horde. And there's a big Nogai component in Kazan Tatars and Crimean Tatars too. Actually, this is what unites us. And this Nogai component in the language makes me understand Crimean Tatar. So again, Nogais, they are right in between Kazan and Crimean Tatars, and then big part of them moved to current Romania and Bulgaria. There are Dobruja Tatars, so-called in Dobruja. They are again predominantly Nogais. Historically, they are Nogais. And as for Cossacks, there is never been a Cossack unit among Tatars. We have a case with Bashkirs. This is a relative ethnic group to Tatars, almost the same language, the same history, the same singers, the same writers, intellectuals. But again, wisely divided by Bolsheviks after the revolution. They considered themselves one nation, Tatars and Bashkirs, but Bolsheviks created first Bashkiria autonomy and then Tatar autonomy. So now two nations are busy fighting each other. In case of Bashkirs, Tsarist government used them in foreign military raids, and Bashkirs have small Cossack units, and they are even sort of proud of this, because it was sign of, Tsarist government accepted them as their servants. And after the collapse of Soviet Union, there was an attempt to reorganize these Bashkiri Cossack units, but it's like ethnographic games, nothing more. There is no political force behind it. So Russian government is now using Russian Cossacks very actively in all trouble for them areas, where the ethnic groups are, so in Caucasus, in Crimea, and in Ural, in the region around Chelyabinsk and Yekaterinburg. But Tatars Tatars were sort of very executed, repressed during Tsars. That's why I'm saying that the Tatar development went in closed societies, in closed areas. So they didn't deal much with Tsarist government. They just existed as on their own. No Cossack history with Tatars.
Alexander Oborsky, Embassy of Ukraine. I would like to put such a question. How Tatar civil society in Tatarstan, political activists, maybe just common people, how they react on information of this wave of repression against Crimean Tatars, which is a really serious issue. It's really mass repression. We see like a repeat of kind of Stalin repressions against people. How they react emotionally, just like people, maybe there are some statements from civic activists. That's my question.
On the level of civic society and activists, as I said, nothing has changed towards Crimean Tatars, and they are pretty much sympathetic with the fight of Crimean Tatars for their identity in occupied Crimea. On the level of government and the majority, unfortunately, you see Tatarstan is in deep in Russian heartland. And for example, our Tatar service, Radio Free Europe, working, by the way, since the right beginning of the radio stations from 1933, we were broadcasting in shortwave. They were jammed terribly. So there is no much possibility, or there has not been much possibility to go into with free information during Soviet times, and it's the same now. And the majority of the Tatar population is pretty much influenced by official propaganda. They are all they all watch this Russian TV, because otherwise, actually, there is no other media, especially free media in the region left. We don't broadcast even on radio now, because radio is not as popular. The only case we can work on the radio if FM is available, but in our case it's not available, because we used to have a transmission over there, but as Putin came to power, first thing he did, he forced all our partners in the regions, including Russian service, by the way, just to get rid of the partnership with us. So just they forced them, they threatened them, they can lose the frequency. So all the partners, they threatened to that extent that we don't have any rebroadcasting in Russia anymore. And I've heard that, for example, some Russian media can be easily accessed in DC, for example, on FM, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like Sputnik, or you can watch, or for example, I came to New York, and as I went to my hotel and switched on TV, the first thing was Russia Today on the local TV, on the local cable. And I tried to look for CNN, I couldn't find it in New York. We would dream about that kind of attitude in Russia towards us, but we don't have that kind of attitude.
So how do you broadcast then?
We are on internet.
It's all online?
It's all online only. So far, internet more or less free, but as I can expect, ahead of forthcoming presidential elections, the policy towards all free foreign media will be tightened they already started working on it. There was a special working group created in Federation Council in Russia. They call it like monitoring the cases of interference into internal Russian affairs. So most likely they will want us to be registered as a foreign agent, or they proclaim us as a non-desirable organization. And so we are working in these terms, and it's still, I'm answering your question because the majority of the population under big Kremlin pressing, and they consider so all this official propaganda about Crimea gives its results, and some people think that Crimean Tatars should have taken the help from Moscow and accept the annexation. It would be nice for them. Some Tatars are glad that, or finally, there are more Tatars in Russian Federation. That kind of simple, very simplified understanding of the situation. They are not going deep because there is no media that can question this situation, this very controversial situation.
Hello, my name is Rosie Berman. I'm in the process of job hunting in the foreign affairs space. And my question also has to do with civil society, but it's about what is civil society in the Middle Volga region doing to counter Putin's recent measures about language instruction?
Thanks for the question. It's really interesting because, as I said, the majority of the population was very led by Kremlin propaganda. But in this particular case, many people just woke up. They saw real face of, I would say, I wouldn't afraid to say this word, but Russian imperialism again, because till now, because of, oil prices, the good economical situation, many people thought actually that Putin is a real leader. So finally we have some more or less affordable life. It's stable, it's safe, but first of all, oil prices went down, and it immediately affected the economical situation, and the people saw that it's not that simple as they understood previously. And now the language issue made them wake up, because they saw that actually the leader who they admired started to do something against them, against their identity. And a lot of people went on streets. It's very popular now among young people, for example, different flash mobs. For example, they organized singing Tatar ethnic anthem, Turantel, and posting them on social networks. This was also a very interesting phenomena for us to study. A lot of protests, petitioning, addressing the president himself, and that helped a lot to raise the awareness what kind of regime we are now living in. This is the first thing. The second thing, it's connected to other problems, ecology, or fighting for your rights in case of collapsed banks, because in Russia several banks collapsed. It's again the outcome of sanctions, outcome of Crimean adventure, outcome of harsher economical situation, and these cheated clients started to self-organize themselves. This also pretty much helped to raise, as I said, raise awareness of possibility of civic activities, and now it's on the rise.
Okay.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay. One other thing I guess maybe throw out there, which is since we are in Washington, and I know you said you're meeting with representatives of the administration and the Congress, what is it that you're asking, or what would you like to see from Western partners in terms of dealing with the growing repression of ethnic minorities in Russia and the situation around the Tatars in particular?
You know, till now, as I said at the beginning, that if someone thinks of Russia, he or she thinks it's Russian, it's a big territory, it's somewhere very far, very cold, maybe dangerous, but still it's Russians, you know, beers, I don't know. But Russia, it's not only, not Moscow, and Moscow is not Russia. Russia is different, and some regions are really particular interest for United States, for the West. And among them, Tatarstan, I think, is the most attractive region. As I said, I throw this bullet point why Tatarstan matter actually. In several terms. First, if West wants to see Russia, the whole Russia, as a truly democratic state, it should consider that the different regions of that state should be truly democratic first, or should be put in these conditions. They can be developed freely, and otherwise Russia can adopt formally very democratic constitution, for example. It has now, actually. It's one of the most progressive, you know, democratic constitutions in the world. But it's just on the paper. This is the problem. And it's not enough to proclaim only individual freedoms, plurality, division of power, rule of law, civic society, but also the rights of minorities should be guaranteed in this constitution. They don't have to fight each time as some great leader thinks opposite about their language, about their culture, about their alphabet, for example. The famous story, you probably don't know, that Tatar language, as all Turkic languages, the 4 Turkic languages, Latin alphabet is more suitable. This is a whole philologist view because of the phonetics, and the Latin language reflects these phonetics the best in comparison to even to Arabic. Tatars used to have before for centuries much better than Cyrillic, and Tatars used to have Latin alphabet in 30s, but Stalin forcibly changed it to Cyrillic in 1940. And since that time, we don't have certain letters. I mean, we have sounds, but we don't have letters for these sounds. And the Tatarstan parliament adopted a law that we are returning back to Latin alphabet. There was a special program adopted in 10 years, like in Kazakhstan now, by the way. And but again, Mr. Putin came with his agenda of creating some very advanced Russian world, and the Russian Duma adopted a special law banning all the alphabets for non-Russian languages and linking them only to Cyrillic. And they explain it like other alphabets are destroying the common educational space or cultural space. This is also one of the steps to this Russification I was talking about, because again, they are doing everything to make these minority languages disappear as soon as possible.
Okay. If there are no more questions, we can wrap up here. Thank you all for coming. Let's give a hand to our presenter. Thanks, Rim. Oh, yeah. And we have a video that Rim brought and that we want to show you guys.
And just small illustration.
It's like 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes and a half. Sometimes we have very good photo galleries about the life of minorities in our region.
One of RFERL Tatar-Bashkir Service projects, Ethnic Beauty and its Identity, is not only for women but also for a broader audience willing to stand up to the threats they face.
What does it mean to be a Mari? It affects everything. Language, rituals, family, all those things make up the nation.
What is freedom? Although it is trivial, the first word that comes up to my mind is beginning.
Tatar blood flows through my veins, but I'm not sure how much. As a child, I was always teased Tatar.
Мне всегда было интересно наблюдать, как разные народы уживаются в такой большой стране. Много десятков разных народностей живут бок о бок много веков, привнося в культуру друг друга что-то свое. Изучая все это, я пытаюсь прежде всего понять про свой русский этнос. Задавая тему про современную женщину, я хотел добиться эффекта размышления. Когда ты остаешься вечером в тишине, закрываешь глаза, и твоя образность начинает работать.
Okay, that is the video. Thank you all again.